Joining us now to discuss all of that and more is Indiana Congressman Marlin Stutzman. Congressman, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
You bet, Amanda. Great to be with you this afternoon.
Great to have you. And, you know, it had pretty easy going through the House, but now it's in the Senate. Chuck Schumer has indicated that they are not going to reach 60 votes to invoke cloture. So is this going to be a Schumer shutdown?
Absolutely. If the Democrats and Chuck Schumer decide not to pass a clean CR, which they have always supported in the past, this will be a Schumer shutdown. And, you know, we did our work in the House. And actually, you know, it's amazing. I mean, kind of ironic, the fact that we have a smaller majority in the House of Representatives than what they do in the Senate with Republicans. But it's this, you know, cloture vote, as you mentioned, that Democrats are going to have to agree to shut off the debate and to go to a vote. And the fact that they're not willing to do that you know, is really unfortunate, because I think more than anything, and we saw this in the joint address last week, is they want Trump to fail. They are willing to do anything and everything to make sure that Trump fails. And you know what, ultimately, if Trump fails, the American people, it's going to fall back on us as the American people, and we're going to be the ones that pay for it. And I think the Democrats are just continuing to dig themselves into a deep hole.
Yeah, it is remarkable. And there is 20 years of clips of Democrats saying, don't shut down the government, it's the wrong thing to do. How does this play out? How do Republicans make sure they don't get blamed for something where they've done the right thing? I'm sure there's a plan in place to control that narrative and tell the American people what's really going on.
Yeah, well, part of that is just to actually, when we came in this week, to move the vote on to Tuesday, and that way we had time to pass the bill, send it to the Senate, not give them any reason to say that they didn't have enough time or that we jammed them at the last second. They have today, they have tomorrow, and it looks like they're going to run it right up to the end of the clock on Friday. And I know that there may be a Republican or two in the Senate that says that they're going to vote against the bill. But the way I look at this, John, is that we're having to take over this depressed company. I'm a business guy and entrepreneur, and I've had the opportunity to revitalize a company from time to time, and you have to pay all the garbage bills from the past management, and that's what we're having to do with this CR. But at the same time, with the anomalies that are added, we're actually increasing funding to the border, and we're also increasing some funding to our military, but we're flatlining the rest of spending. So this is a much better alternative than having an omnibus or a cromnibus that is filled up with a bunch of items that don't have anything to do with the budgetary process, but like a Christmas tree that we've seen in the past that is passed at the last minute, and we find out how bad it is later. So this is really a win, but at the same time, we want to get past this point so we can get to the budget and really start doing meaningful cuts.
Yeah.
Congressman, do you think that there's an element of this, and you mentioned you're a businessman, the sunk cost fallacy for Democrats? If you look at the polling heading into midterms, it looks like the margin will either stay the same. Democrats could even lose a few more seats, so that margin will be stretched out even further in favor of Republicans. Do you think that there's some type of wonky strategy on the left that says, look, we already know we're not going to win back the Senate in the midterms, so let's just do everything we can to pump the brakes on whatever is happening for President Trump?
It sure seems so. I mean, the fact that they, wouldn't even applaud the First Lady or applaud the young African-American boy who is fighting cancer, they just want to see him fail. And I thought it was kind of funny that President Trump picked up on that throughout the speech and then finally just said, I could cure cancer. I could, do the most incredible thing in the world, and they still wouldn't applaud. But, I still believe that for the most part, Americans want to see Washington work, and they don't want to see spending out of control. You can't have any sort of common sense if you think that it's just okay to spend $36 trillion into debt and not have a plan to get out of it. So I think the majority of Americans are really seeing the difference between the two parties, and that the Democrat Party has no solutions. They continue to, not only just move further to the left, but they're falling off the edge, and they have no plan on how to fix the problems that are facing Americans. And I think that, we're already seeing inflation drop off. The Democrats like to talk about the egg prices. We're seeing egg prices come down. And I come from an ag family, so we know that that's not just because of the cost at the grocery store. It's because of the bird flu that The USDA under the Trump administration has already spent money to address the bird flu problem. And so there's already answers that are being given to problems. And I just am so excited. I was here during the Obama era, and it's night and day. And I'm glad to see Trump doing what he's doing, because he's really fixing problems that we all knew were there, but the Democrats weren't able to fix under Joe Biden.
Yeah, and so I saw you comment on this. I like this announcement. I think a lot of people don't understand this. The Fed cut rates when Joe Biden was president, and mortgage rates went up because they were so worried about how Joe Biden was spending. The Fed hasn't cut rates yet under President Trump, and yet mortgage rates started climbing down the last couple of weeks because they see you and the Congress and the Senate and the President talking about cutting spending. It is a powerful dynamic just to have the conversation about cutting spending, isn't it?
It is. And, I told some of my friends, from being here before, we didn't ever, we passed budgets in the House, but we knew that they wouldn't go anywhere in the Senate, and we knew that President Obama would never agree to it. But, this is actually meaningful cuts. And I'll tell you, John, the fact that we have the Doge team and Elon Musk doing what they're doing at the Treasury, when you take over a business again, but you go straight to the checking accounts and you start seeing where all of the dollars are going out and what's being paid, and you start asking, well, what is that for? And why are we paying for this? And do we need that? That's what Elon Musk and the Doge team are doing. And it's a huge benefit to us as members of Congress, because now we actually have the information and we can point straight, right at these particular items where we can say, this is not what the American people are asking the federal government to spend money on. And the fact that we're looking at all these agencies, the Department of Education looks like we're heading towards finally doing what many of us have wanted to do, and that's to send the education issue back to the states and dissolve the Department of Education. The USAID, we've known that's been fraudulent and a problem for many, many years, but now we have an administration that truly is able to get at it. And the Democrats were able to keep Trump on his heels in the first term, but boy, this time around, he's in a great spot to really fix the federal government and truly help the American people and our country get back on track.
Yeah, great point.
And one of those fixes to the federal government involves combining redundancy and trimming down some of the fat. You've got, USAID that can get folded into the State Department. I want to ask you about the ATF. If not abolishing altogether, it could at least be folded into the FBI, couldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, that's one of the issues we were talking about today. And, think about the ATF in the history of the ATF. And we really only think about it when there were scandals and problems, whether it was at Waco and what we've seen them do with law-abiding citizens or passing regulations without congressional approval. Again, the Second Amendment is there for a reason to defend our freedoms. And the ATF has just continued to trample on those Second Amendment rights. And I believe that the states, again, are the place where we can administer the law. And I know in Indiana, we are fully capable and willing and excited talking to our legislative members. They want to take on those responsibilities because they're closer to the people, and they're also going to be much more efficient rather than sending our money to Washington and then seeing them take the cream off the top and we get bad service in return. So I think that the ATF, hopefully their days are numbered, but Trump is for sure looking at every agency and finding ways that they can either do better or we can do without.
Yep, trim the fat. I love it. Congressman Merlin Stutzman from the great state of Indiana. Thank you for being here, sir.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.